You are boring. My wife said it without anger, without hesitation, and somehow that made it hurt more. She was sitting across from me at our kitchen table, scrolling through her phone while I stared at the coffee growing cold between us. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. The house felt warm, safe, ordinary. My marriage did not. What exactly does that mean? I asked. She finally looked up. It means you never want to do anything anymore. Her mouth tightened into a tired smile. You work. You come home. You eat dinner. You watch television. Then you sleep. That is your whole life. I did not raise my voice. I did not throw the coffee. I simply looked at her. And yours? She paused. I have a life. That sentence stayed with me. My name is Daniel Carter. I was 43, married for 12 years, and I had spent most of those years believing stability was something worth being proud of. I worked as a project manager for a commercial construction company. My days were concrete: steel, schedules, invoices, and phone calls. I was not glamorous. I was reliable. I paid our mortgage. I kept the cars running. I remembered birthdays. I fixed whatever broke. I thought that was what a husband did. Claire apparently thought it was boring. Looking back, the warning signs had been there for months. Her phone was always face down. She smiled at messages she never showed me. She started going out more often, usually for work dinners or drinks with friends. She bought new clothes and wore perfume on nights when I was supposed to be the only person waiting for her at home. I noticed. I said nothing. Not because I was blind. Because I trusted her. That trust was about to become the most expensive thing I had ever given anyone. Is there someone else? I asked. Claire's eyes narrowed. Seriously? It is a simple question. You are becoming paranoid. She pushed her chair back. This is exactly what I mean. Everything with you is so predictable. Predictable. Boring. Paranoid. 3 words. 3 cracks in something I had spent 12 years building. She walked upstairs and closed the bedroom door. I remained at the table. The rain continued tapping against the glass. I stared at my reflection in the dark window. For a few minutes, I actually wondered if she was right. Maybe I had become too comfortable. Maybe I had stopped noticing her. Maybe I had forgotten how to make my wife feel wanted. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus, my business partner. Did Claire ever mention a guy named Ethan? My chest tightened. I stared at the screen. Ethan. I knew the name. Ethan Cole worked for a marketing firm that had recently started handling one of Claire's professional accounts. I typed back. Why? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, Marcus sent a photograph. Claire was standing outside a downtown restaurant. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave me lately. A real one. Her hand rested on Ethan's arm. He was leaning toward her, close enough that there was no innocent explanation for the intimacy between them. I zoomed in. Claire was wearing the black dress she had told me was too formal for our anniversary dinner 2 weeks earlier. My stomach turned. I did not call her. I did not confront Ethan. I did not even show Marcus how badly the picture had hit me. I saved it. Then I opened a folder on my computer and typed 1 word into the name field. Evidence. The word looked strange on the screen. Almost cold. But something inside me had already changed. Until that moment, I had been trying to save my marriage. Now I needed to know whether there was still a marriage left to save. And what I did not know yet was that Ethan was not the secret my wife was trying hardest to hide. He was only the first name. The photograph was not the part that scared me. The timestamp was. I sat alone in my office that night with Claire's picture open on my screen. 8:47 p.m. 2 weeks ago. The same night she had told me she was exhausted and went to bed early. I zoomed in again. Ethan's hand rested lightly against her back. Claire was smiling at him the way she used to smile at me. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't call her. My voice would have changed if I did, and I didn't trust myself to speak before I knew the truth. The documents in front of me were thin, but the pattern was beginning to take shape. The story had to unfold slowly. Suspicion first. Evidence second. Truth last. That was the only way I could keep myself from turning pain into assumptions. I opened my calendar. The date of the photograph was a Thursday. Claire had told me she had work late at her office. I checked our shared schedule. Nothing. No client dinner. No meeting. No event. Just a blank evening. I stared at it. Then I opened our old messages. Running late tonight. Don't wait up. Her message had arrived at 6:12 p.m. I remembered replying, "Okay. Drive safe." Such ordinary words. They felt different now. I called Marcus. "Where did you get the photograph?" "A friend sent it to me." "Who?" He hesitated. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "I don't think he wanted his name involved." I leaned back. "What else do you know?" Marcus was quiet for several seconds. "Ethan has been around Claire more than you realize." Something cold settled behind my ribs. "Explain." "He has been taking her to the same restaurant every Thursday." "Every Thursday?" "For the last 6 weeks." 6 weeks. That was not one bad decision. That was a routine. I opened my notebook and wrote the dates down. Thursday. 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 A pattern. Then Marcus said something that made me stop writing. "There is another thing." "What?" "Ethan has been asking about you." I looked at the page. "About me?" "Your company. Your investments. Whether you plan to retire soon." The room suddenly felt colder. "Why would he care?" "I don't know." I thanked Marcus and ended the call. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was imagining Claire with Ethan. I was past that. What kept me awake was the question underneath it. Why was Ethan interested in my life? The next morning, Claire came downstairs wearing a gray sweater and holding her coffee. "You were up late," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She kissed my cheek. It was the first affectionate gesture she'd given me in weeks. I looked at her carefully. "How was work yesterday?" Her hand stopped around the coffee mug. "Busy." "Long day?" "Very." "Client dinner?" She looked at me. "Why?" "Just asking." Her smile returned, but it looked forced now. "You're strange lately." "Maybe." She walked toward the door. "I'll be late tonight." I nodded. "Okay." She paused. "You aren't going to ask why? You don't like predictable questions." She stared at me. For a second, either of us moved. Then she left. I watched her car disappear down the street. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Not yet. Instead, I called an accountant I trusted and asked him to quietly review several business transactions involving Ethan's firm. Nothing personal. Nothing invasive. Just professional records. 2 hours later, he called me back. "Daniel, there is something unusual." "What?" "Ethan's firm has been trying to win a consulting contract with one of your company's subsidiaries." I frowned. "Since when?" "About 3 months." 3 months. That was before Claire called me boring. Before the restaurant. Before the photograph. Before I started asking questions. The timeline was getting longer. That afternoon, another email arrived. It contained a single attachment. A corporate expense report. Ethan's company had billed several dinners to a client account. 3 dates matched nights Claire had told me she was working late. I stared at the screen. The evidence was no longer one photograph. It was a chain. And chains have weak links. I opened a fresh folder and added the report beside the photograph. Then I noticed something at the bottom of the document. A name. Claire Carter. Listed as the internal contact. My chest tightened. She wasn't just meeting Ethan. She was connected to his business. And whatever they were hiding had started long before I ever heard his name. I thought Ethan was the affair. I was wrong. That sentence came to me at 2:17 in the morning, while the blue light of my laptop filled the bedroom and Claire slept behind a closed door. I had spent hours comparing dates, invoices, messages, and company records. The more I connected them, the less this looked like a simple affair. It looked organized, deliberate, layered. The documents in front of me were becoming a chain, each piece pulling the next into view. That slow accumulation of evidence was exactly what I needed before confronting anyone. I opened the expense report again. Claire was listed as the internal contact for Ethan's consulting firm. That alone could have been innocent. Her department worked with outside vendors. But the dates bothered me. Ethan's company had started billing the account shortly after Claire began spending more time away from home. I pulled up the original contract. Then I noticed something I had missed before. Ethan's firm had received a temporary authorization to access financial projections from one of our subsidiaries. The authorization had been approved by Claire. I leaned back in my chair. My chest tightened. She had not simply met him. She had opened doors for him. I printed the authorization and placed it beside the photograph. Then I called Marcus. I need one more thing. What? Find out whether Ethan has done business with anyone connected to my company before. Marcus paused. How far back? 3 years. That is going to take some time. Take it. I ended the call and stared at the documents. I still wanted to believe there was an explanation. People deserve explanations before judgment. But every time I gave Claire the benefit of the doubt, another fact appeared and removed it. By morning, Marcus had found something. Daniel, you need to come in. I drove to the office. He was waiting with a folder. Ethan's company was almost bankrupt 18 months ago. I looked at him. Almost? They had serious cash flow problems. Several major clients left. He opened another document. Then suddenly they received a series of consulting contracts. I scanned the list. One company belonged to a former client of mine. Another was connected to a supplier we used. The third was a company I had never heard of. What do these have in common? I asked. Marcus pointed to the contact information. Ethan. I frowned. That is not enough. No. But this is. He slid another page toward me. Each contract had unusually high consulting fees followed by rapid payments to a second company. Who owns the second company? I asked. Marcus looked at me. Ethan's brother. The room went quiet. This was no longer just about a man seeing my wife. Ethan had a pattern. Companies paid him. Money moved through related businesses. Contracts appeared where there should have been ordinary competition. I looked at the numbers again. Can you prove anything illegal? Not yet. Then we do not accuse him. Marcus nodded. Agreed. That afternoon, I went home earlier than usual. Claire was in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner. She looked almost happy. You are home? Yes. She smiled. I thought we could have a nice evening. I watched her for a moment. Where were you last night? Her hand stopped over the cutting board. I told you. I was working. Until 11? Yes. With Ethan? Her face changed. Not much. Just enough. Why are you asking? Because I know you have been seeing him. The knife remained still in her hand. The room froze. She finally looked at me. You went through my things? No. I placed the photograph on the counter. Her face drained of color. Who gave you that? That is what you are worried about. She stared at the picture. Daniel, how long? Her lips trembled. It is not what you think. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in me. That is what people say when it is exactly what I think. She looked away. Ethan understands me. I nodded slowly. Maybe. Then I picked up the photograph. But I do not think you understand Ethan. She frowned. What is that supposed to mean? You will find out. I walked out of the kitchen. Behind me, Claire called my name. I did not turn around. Because by then, I had discovered something she did not know. Ethan was carrying debts, hidden contracts, and a business structure that depended on people trusting him. And if Claire had tied herself to him, she was standing much closer to the edge than she realized. The next morning, the first crack appeared. At 7:12 a.m., my phone vibrated. It was a message from Ray Johnson. 3 words. Please stop. I stared at the screen. Not because I felt powerful. Because those words told me everything. He wasn't denying it anymore. He wasn't calling me a liar. He wasn't threatening to sue. He was asking me to stop. I set the phone down and opened the folder marked Ray. Every message. Every photograph. Every hotel reservation. Every timestamp. There was no room left for an explanation. Ray called 10 minutes later. His voice sounded different. Smaller. Jack, you don't understand what you're doing. I looked at the evidence spread across my desk. No, I said quietly. You don't understand what you did. Silence. Then he whispered, My wife knows. That sentence stayed with me. Not because I enjoyed his pain. Because it was the first consequence I had watched arrive without me pushing it through the door. His wife had found the evidence. Not from me. From him. He had confessed. The same thing happened with Richard. His university called him in for a meeting. He walked into that office believing he could explain everything away. He couldn't. The photographs had dates. The messages had timestamps. The hotel records matched his calendar. His own words were sitting in a printed folder on the dean's desk. By noon, he had resigned. Patricia was next. Her husband confronted her with one photograph. Just one. She denied it. Then he showed her the second. Then the third. By the fourth, she stopped talking. Her marriage didn't explode with screaming. It collapsed quietly. A suitcase. A slammed door. A wedding photograph removed from the hallway. That was all. Frank lasted the longest. He called me furious. You think you've won? I sat in my office, looking through the window at the rain sliding down the glass. No. He went silent. I don't need to win, I said. I only need the truth to survive. That frightened him more than anger would have. Because anger burns fast. Evidence doesn't. It waits. It sits inside folders. It lives on hard drives. It has timestamps. It has witnesses. It remembers. By Friday afternoon, every one of them had started collapsing under the weight of his own choices. Marcus was suspended. Ray was under internal scrutiny. Richard had resigned. Patricia's husband had left. Frank had stopped answering his phone. And Laura still knew nothing. That was the strange part. She walked through the house like everything was normal. She made coffee. Answered emails. Talked about dinner. She even kissed my cheek one morning. Busy day? She asked. I looked into her eyes. Very. She smiled. She had no idea. Not yet. That night, I returned to the evidence wall. 5 photographs. 5 names. 5 stories that had once existed separately. Now they were connected by one woman. My wife. I stood there for a long time. The room was silent except for the refrigerator humming behind me. I expected satisfaction. I didn't feel it. I expected relief. There was none. What I felt was something colder. Finality. The truth had stopped being a suspicion. It had become a machine moving under its own weight. I hadn't destroyed those lives. They had built the walls themselves. I had only turned on the light. Then my phone rang. Laura. Her voice was trembling. Jack. I closed my eyes. What happened? A long pause. I don't know. Her breathing became uneven. Something is wrong. Everything is falling apart. I looked at the 5 folders on my desk. For the first time, I understood the real power of evidence. You don't have to scream. You don't have to chase anyone. You don't have to threaten them. You simply place the truth where it can no longer be hidden. And then you wait. The truth does the rest. 3 months later, the house was quiet. Not the uncomfortable quiet that had filled it during the last years of my marriage. A different kind. Clean. Honest. The divorce was final on a Tuesday morning. No courtroom explosion. No screaming. No dramatic last words. Just signatures. Paper. A judge's voice. And 23 years reduced to a folder that fit inside a drawer. I walked out of the courthouse alone. The winter air hit my face, cold enough to make me pull my coat tighter. For a moment, I stood beside my truck and looked back at the building. I expected to feel victorious. I didn't. I felt tired. There is a difference. Revenge gives you motion. Peace gives you somewhere to stop. I drove home, parked in the driveway, and sat behind the wheel for several minutes. The same driveway. The same porch. The same house. But it didn't feel like a crime scene anymore. It felt like mine. I went inside and opened every window. Cold air moved through the rooms, pushing out the smell of old furniture, old arguments, old memories. I took the wedding photographs down one by one. I didn't burn them. I didn't tear them apart. I placed them in a box. Some memories deserve to be remembered. They just don't deserve to run your life. Then I cleaned the kitchen. Something about that felt important. The counter where Laura used to leave her coffee. The chair where we had eaten thousands of meals. The window where morning sunlight used to fall across the floor. For years, I had thought rebuilding meant finding someone new. I was wrong. Sometimes rebuilding means finding yourself again. I started small. Morning walks. Better food. Longer hours at work, but not because I was hiding from home. I worked because I liked what I built. I called my daughter more. We talked without pretending everything was fine. One Saturday, she came over with groceries and helped me repaint the living room. We laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised me. It had been a long time. She looked at me while holding a paint roller. "You seem different, Dad." I smiled. "I am." She didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. Children know when a parent has finally stopped carrying something heavy. Weeks passed. The evidence folders stayed locked away. I never opened them again. Marcus found another job. Ray left the department. Richard disappeared from our circle. The others moved on in their own ways. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. That was the final lesson. You can spend years watching the people who hurt you fall apart. But eventually you realize their collapse is not your destination. Your life is. One evening, I stood on the porch with a cup of coffee. The sunset stretched orange across the neighborhood. For the first time, the house felt warm. Not because Laura was inside. Because I was. I thought about the man who had discovered that blouse under the kitchen light. He had been confused. Afraid. Still hoping. I wanted to tell him something. You were not stupid for trusting her. You were not weak for loving her. You were not a fool because someone lied to you. The mistake would have been staying after the truth became undeniable. I took one last sip of coffee. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Laura. "I hope someday you can forgive me." I read it twice. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I typed 4 words. "I wish you peace." I sent it. No anger. No invitation. No second chance. Just peace. I put the phone away and looked toward the horizon. The sun was disappearing. The sky was turning dark. And somehow, darkness no longer frightened me. For 23 years, I thought marriage was the thing that made me whole. Now I understood. A man can lose a marriage and still keep his dignity. He can lose a home and rebuild one. He can lose trust in another person without losing trust in himself. I went inside. Locked the door. Turned off the kitchen light. and for the first time in years, I slept without wondering where my wife was. The truth had taken everything apart. But it had also given me something I didn't know I needed. A life that was mine. No lies. No surveillance. No evidence wall. No revenge. Just silence. Real silence. And in that silence, I finally found peace. Sometimes justice isn't watching the person who hurt you suffer. Sometimes justice is waking up one morning and realizing you don't care anymore. That was my victory. Not destroying her. Not defeating them. Walking away whole. And never looking back. After 23 years of marriage, Jack Miller discovers a devastating secret that shatters everything he thought he knew about his wife. What begins with a suspicious stain on a silk blouse turns into a carefully documented investigation involving hidden cameras, secret messages, hotel records, and multiple affairs. Instead of confronting his cheating wife in anger, Jack stays calm and begins collecting the truth piece by piece. As the evidence grows, he confronts the men involved and watches their carefully protected secrets collapse under the weight of undeniable proof. But Jack's real revenge is not destruction, it is walking away with his dignity intact. This powerful betrayal and revenge story follows a husband's journey from shock and humiliation to truth, justice, divorce, and ultimately peace. If you enjoy cheating wife stories, marriage betrayal, hidden affair stories, revenge stories, DNA and evidence twists, emotional storytelling, and satisfying justice endings, this story will keep you watching until the very end. Sometimes the strongest revenge is not making someone suffer, it is rebuilding your life without them. 1. Jack Miller, 44-year-old Massachusetts mechanical engineer, rugged suburban American man with steady eyes, strong jaw, practical build, short dark hair, work-worn hands, understated clothing, calm masculine presence, restrained emotion, quietly observant, dignified, resilient.